Do you want the ball? Here, get it. La 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 la, seriously, get it. La 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 la, I'm being real here, go get it. Jeez, are you crazy or just stupid? La 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 la. Oh hey, I was joking. Here, I'll give him the ball. Wait, what?
It was at this moment that he knew. He stuffed up.
Oh no.
Hello everyone, welcome to a video that I have been wanting to put out for a while. A video in particular where I talk about what type of film projects I am trying to put out. So, let's sit back, chill out for a while, and I'll tell you on what I'm planning out right now. Lots of my projects that I'm planning to work on are of course animated productions that I hope you will enjoy. I put so much effort into lots of my videos, but it's not getting anywhere. No matter how hard I try to put out a video, and no matter how much effort I put into them, it never tries to pay off. It never seems to anyway. One of my biggest goals was to produce animated feature films, and I did just that when I did part 2. Originally, part 1 was meant to be 30 minutes long, whereas part 2 was only meant to be 45. But I guess I don't know much of what I did. Like, the plot was not written at all. I just thought it all in my head and went along with it as I, And of course, I did some original music for it, and I even have my own playlist of animated productions that you can feel free to check out. Link in the description if you are, of course, interested. But now I want to branch out on new other ideas for upcoming projects to bring to the big screen. And because I do everything on my own, for the most part, I struggle to come up with ideas that will appeal to the audience. For instance, I was looking online for some movie ideas. I was thinking about, like, a Western film that I have never even thought of producing a Western film before. Actually, I have, but never came into fruition. And I was also thinking about the superhero genre and how it has boosted up for decades. Whereas the Western things have been doing for a long time. Like, the Italian film composer Ennio Morricone, he did a lot of tracks for movies, including The Untouchables, which I think is pretty good. But if you're doing a history movie, I would go against twisting the truth, because that is not something the channel wants to focus on. And what really irks me is the fact that a lot of, almost every media production label twists the truth just for the sake of money. Even news people do it, especially Fox News. They completely twist the truth, confuse their audience members, and they stole the name from a movie company. But apart from that, let's get back on the topic for what film I want to produce. Like I said, I was thinking producing some sort of new Western film, and I was also thinking about the superhero tropes, and I thought to myself, I thought this is a new idea that I don't think anyone else has come up with before. Why not produce a Western superhero movie and then showcase it at the Sundance Film Festival? And then the next thing you have to ask yourself is, okay, who do you want to help produce this film with you? Well, these two companies heavily inspired me to produce films, and this one is relatively new on its own, so it's pretty fitting. So I've created some original characters for, different projects and whatnot. I generally like to create male characters, although for the most part I create female. Which is okay. I don't want you to get angry with my opinions because, as we all know, politics are ruining America. But aside the point. So, I wrote the story for my upcoming project, like I tend to do with some projects, and I hope to get this film produced in collaboration with a company I have admired heavily. And I also want to make sure the film is an hour and 45 minutes long, because a lot of animated films these days are that length, although sometimes they go over 2 hours, which is not as normal, because children have a very short attention span, which is understandable. They're very young, no offense. But there are some other genres I am familiar with too. I'm not really big into the horror films because those films freak me out very heavily, and I just don't want to go down that path. But I am into adventure, science fiction, and fantasy, as well as comedy. So, what films would I want to produce? Well, you're already hearing me talk about this, right? As you may have guessed, that I have been producing my own productions for quite some time. And of course, it's not just animation that I put my hard work into. I also produce music, and I have other playlists, one being original stuff, and the other being song covers. If you're interested, I will link them in the description. And turns out I've been getting a lot better at both animation and music, but I can't say that I'm the absolute best. When I come up with stories, I try to think of it efficiently, because while it is true I keep using the same reoccurring gags, and pretty much will continue to do so, I'm not perfect, okay? No one is perfect. Now, for what character purposes would I want my films to, let's say, to indulge in? Well, for one, let's say, one of these topics would be like a Dear Buddy film. Take Rush Hour for example. Those movies are downright hilarious. And another being like the teenage protagonist roles, like The Maze Runner. I think those films are absolutely remarkable, and I would recommend giving them a watch. If you're interested, of course. Disney is well known for producing films based upon princesses. Some of their work is completely original, although they do produce films based upon the public domain, which they don't want their films entering. Which I get, but when I'm producing films, I'm not trying to do it for the sake of money. Oh no, quite far from it. I'm doing it for the sake of fun. I'm not trying to push people away just for the sake of money. I know it's because companies are becoming woke and not caring about what type of content they produce. I mean, seriously. I'm independent when it comes to productions, but when it comes to many things else, that's a different story. If I get my films out there and they perform very well, I will make sure to put out more of my best works. But of course, I can't appeal to all audiences. That's just not how I'm meant to work, okay? I can't satisfy everyone, but I work hard and that's all I can do. If I'm producing an independent film, I may want to try and do it with this company here. Although, personally, it would be hard for me to look for alternatives, because let's be real here. No one does a better job at doing things like they do. At least in my own personal opinion. You can't argue over certain tropes. I mean, that's what politics are causing people to do. Argue. They start wars, which leads to many people suffering, which leads to people dying. And war isn't something we should be thriving on. I thought we were supposed to love each other and live prosperous. But I guess some people see it differently. But at the end of the day, when I try to put my stuff out there, I'm doing it for a better cause, and of course, Minecraft also gives me creative ideas. I have produced a lot of Minecraft stories that I hope you find entertaining. If you're interested, I will link some of them in the description. But then, of course, I have done some promotional shorts to support other companies' films, like this one here. I didn't think this one would get so many views. It has over 1,000 views at the time of this recording, and I want to take a huge moment to say thank you to everyone who helped this video rise to the numbers that I never thought would get so many. If you're interested, I will link that video in the description because it is too downright hilarious. Of course, comedy is one of my things, as I said earlier. But, you know, with my upcoming film ideas, I hope to be able to put out more, and, you know, maybe, possibly, I will be able to entertain the whole world, because that's one thing I want to do. I do crack people up sometimes, and I'm becoming like a huge icon in California currently, especially since I put so much hard work in Wizarding Plague. Part 1 took only like a month and a half to produce, whereas Part 2 took like a few years. And I don't even know why. Maybe it's because I've been slacking off and doing other things, but it also had something to do with Disney's 100th anniversary and my emotional struggles, and also my 25 schedule, as well as my frequent visits to the Queen Mary. Thus far, at the time of this recording, I've only gone to the ship 3 times. If you're interested in hotels, she is a personal go-to. And I mean, literally. If you want to go check her out, you may be able to do so. But California is very expensive at the moment, so yeah. California is a nice state, but you may need to be aware of crime, because big cities have a lot of crime, which is miraculously being reduced. So, if I want to do another update video, I will feel free to let you know. But for the time being, I will just let you go on with your day. You got more movies coming soon. You got a superhero movie soon to be in the works. And hopefully, a collaboration for a lifetime. See you later, folks. Have a very pleasant day.